Hello, this is Carrie, and welcome to yet another installment of Hollywood Forever Tour Talk. This past week seemed like the perfect time to talk about Mickey Rooney because the other day, which I believe was September 23rd, marked the 100th year anniversary of Mickey Rooney's birth. Mickey Rooney was born September 23rd, 1920, in New York, I believe in Brooklyn. And his mom was a burlesque dancer, and his dad was a comic in vaudeville. So Mickey was basically born in a trunk. And he made his vaudeville debut at the age of 2 years old on stage, very similar to his future friend and co star Judy Garland. And of course, at that time, if you're born to vaudevillians, chances are very high that you will be a vaudeville person as well. So it did not take long at all for Mickey to be a attraction in vaudeville. And then his mom and his dad broke up when Mickey was about 3. And his mom took him out to Hollywood and auditioned him for Hal Roach. And then they didn't get the job, they left. But then his mom heard about an audition for a series based on this popular cartoon. And the lead role was a character called Mickey McGuire. And by the way, Mickey wasn't born Mickey Rooney, he was born Joe Yule Jr. In any case, his mom heard about this audition. The only problem was the Mickey McGuire character had black hair and her son had blonde hair. But she dyed her little boy's hair black, brought him back to Hollywood, auditioned him, and he got the job as Mickey McGuire. So he made a ton of movies as the Mickey McGuire character. And of course, it really launched his film career. And then he would eventually be cast in movies from MGM. And from a very, very early age, Mickey had a talent that was far greater than his years and a kind of maturity far greater than his years as well. He could be sweet and gentle and loving. He could be kind of rude, Mr. Tough Guy. He kind of had all sorts of different ranges just for a kid, which is pretty darned amazing. And he had small parts in MGM films, and really one of his breakthrough roles at MGM was in the film Boys Town opposite Spencer Tracy. And that was a huge role for Mickey opposite this incredible actor. And he really, really put him on the map, this performance. And Mickey got a lot of attention for this. Eventually, he would get a Juvenile Academy Award as well. And Mickey was a very short man in stature, but he's definitely proof that dynamite comes in small packages. So Mickey continued to work and his star continued to rise. And eventually he would be cast in the Andy Hardy series. He wound up starring in about 16 Andy Hardy movies. And these movies were about a small town boy with big troubles and would usually culminate with him asking his dad, Judge Hardy, for a man-to-man talk and usually about his trouble with girls or something like that. But they were very clean-cut, wholesome films and huge hits at the box office. It's almost as if the American public loved these movies and MGM kind of had their finger more than most on what the American public wanted to see. They had their finger on the pulse. Well, it was through the Andy Hardy series that Mickey Rooney would first co-star with Judy Garland. And they hit it off right from the beginning. I think Judy had more feelings for Mickey than he did for her. I think she saw him as a possible boyfriend, but he just saw her as like a sister and a co-star. And they were so similar. In fact, Mickey used to say that it's almost like we were born from the same parents and we were from the same womb because they both made their vaudeville debuts when they were 2 years old. They both came from mom and dad who were in vaudeville backgrounds. They both started really early in movies. They both became movie stars. I mean, they both sang and danced. They've had so many similarities. It really is like they were almost brother and sister. They weren't, obviously, but they had a lot of similarities. Judy was born Frances Ethel Gum. Mickey was born Joe Yule Jr. They both had such similar paths that they took in life and certainly to Hollywood. Well, they wound up making several hit musicals together, including Babes in Arms, Babes on Broadway, Girl Crazy and Strike Up the Band. And Mickey was incredibly talented. He was basically an all-around entertainer, which meant he could sing, dance, act. He did comedy, he did drama, he could play musical instruments. He played the piano, he played the drums. He was just so talented in so many areas. And when you see these musicals, there's a lot of backstory about the making of them, and it's not often pretty. They would work them for 24 hours at a time, sometimes 70 something hours at a clip. And Judy, that was very, very difficult for Judy to keep up with that. Mickey, not so much. He thrived under those kind of conditions. And Mickey seems to have an energy that was almost supernatural and certainly inexhaustible. And you will certainly see that if you watch his movies, especially the musicals. Well, when another problem that Mickey had, and I do want to talk about one thing about Mickey's life, is that for Mickey, Judy, and a lot of others, being a child actor is a very, very tough road to hoe. And there's often a lot of baggage and a lot of problems that come with that. And the book I kind of wanted to recommend today is called Hollywood's Children, an inside account of the child star era by Diana Sarah Carey, who of course was better known as Baby Peggy, the silent movie star. And of course she knew Mickey Rooney and went to school with him. In any case, one of the plights that these kids faced was that from a very, very early age, all they knew how to do really was like sing, dance, and act. They got very little schooling. The schooling was sort of almost done to simply fulfill the absolute bare minimum education requirements, if that. And it was almost something of a joke. And then oftentimes the family spent the money. So many times they'd grow up and then a lot of the money's gone. And it's also a tough business because you can go from being a little child star, but the transition to being a teenage star, the transition to being an adult star, these are very, very hard transitions. Not everybody makes them. And some people might be huge as kids and done by the time they're 11, 12, 13. Some people might be done by the time they're 20, 21. I mean, again, it's a very, very hard thing to continue to do. Mickey managed to make all of these transitions from basically infant all the way up to his death at age 93. He managed to transit, but it wasn't always easy for him. In fact, he was the #1 box office star in the country from 1939, 40, and 41. Like, he was bigger box office in those years than like Greta Garbo, even Clark Gable. I mean, Mickey was the king of the box office. It's hard to even describe to people the incredible appeal and level of stardom that Mickey had. Well, he wound up serving in World War II, and he earned a Bronze Star for his military service. He went to the front in Europe. He did what they call Jeep shows, where they drive around in Jeeps all over the battlefields or all over the Europe, and they started doing these spontaneous shows out of the Jeep for the troops. So Mickey did that very tirelessly for 2 years. And when he came back, he faced a lot of problems. Problem #1 was that even before the war, Mickey had a difficult time maintaining the wholesome image MGM wanted for him. And as I've talked about in previous installments of Tour Talk, back in the day, if you were under contract to a studio, you basically belonged to them, lock, stock, and barrel, and your personal life or personal decisions were basically not your own. And so Mickey may have been a big box office star, but he was going out after making these wholesome, squeaky clean Andy Hardy films by day. He was going out and partying at night, going to nightclubs. He was known for his extreme womanizing, his heavy gambling, and he's 19 years old. And the studio head, Louis B. Mayer, tried to have several talks with him about, you cannot act like this. Like, you are Andy Hardy. You are America's box office star. You're the squeaky clean hometown hero, and you can't be going out like this and acting like this and living like this. And Mickey will just tell him, look, when I'm done at work, I do what I want. And so MGM had a publicist that Mickey Rooney used to call his vice president of Mickey Rooney. And this publicist would basically have to be glued to his hip day and night. And wherever Mickey went, the publicist went. And the idea was to keep him out of trouble, which I don't think they were very successful in doing. Mickey's first marriage was to Ava Gardner, and this would be another pattern in Mickey's life. He would propose to women often the very night he met them or within a few days' time. And if they said no, he would doggedly pursue them and pursue them and pursue them until they said yes. So Mickey saw Ava Gardner on the set of one of his films. She was like a bit player, a model, just getting her start at MGM. He pursued her and they did get married, but Mickey was more interested in playing golf and womanizing and gambling than being a husband. Ava was very jealous, apparently. Mickey was jealous, and they were both super young. I think Ava was, she's like 19. Mickey was 21 or so. So it's kind of a big recipe for disaster. So Mickey's, already got a marriage under his belt at 21. He left, he married another girl who was a beauty queen. He had a thing for starlets and beauty queens. He married another woman who was a beauty queen. She got pregnant. Mickey left to fight in World War II. Didn't even get to meet his son until the son was like over 2 years old and Mickey got back from the war. And they had another son, got divorced. And Mickey got married and divorced multiple times. And I asked this one film historian who mentors me, I said one day we were talking and I said, how come some of these people had so many marriages? Mickey would have a total of 8. What were they thinking? Like, why would they propose or get married like the night they met, the week they met? Like, why on earth would they do that? And the historian, we talked about it, and he said something I thought was very interesting. He said, you know what? A lot of these stars, they lived in the moment. And that's maybe what made them great stars, great actors, because in that moment, yes, they were madly in love with this person. But tomorrow they might not be. Next week they might not be. And that was kind of the problem. So what made them great actors, unfortunately, made their personal lives extraordinarily complicated. And also back in that day, too, there was a tremendous amount of societal pressure to marry young, to marry early. It's not like you could live with people you weren't married to or have long-term relationships without being married. And if you tried to do that, oftentimes the publicity machine and the gossip columnists would point it out and you could get in a tremendous amount of trouble. So basically, I think there was this tremendous impetus on people to get married very young, very quickly, and in the case of a lot of these actors, kind of frequently. So Mickey wound up being married a total of 8 times. So you've got that problem going on. And then after the war, Mickey started looking a little older. And frankly, that's another transition that he had to make from teenage star to adult star. And that's a really tough one to do. Very few people make that. And the other problem was his whole image was predicated on being this cute, wholesome little boy or teenager. And trying to morph that into something more complicated was a huge challenge. And so Mickey, when he got back from the war, he was looking older. And let's face it, you can't play 16-year-olds the rest of your life. You got to move on. So moving on was hard for Mickey. Again, he just didn't look the same. And America wasn't the same. After World War II, a lot of things were different in America. So Mickey kind of came back to a world and a landscape of America that had very radically changed. So he then wound up becoming more of a character actor. Because Mickey was a cute man, but he wasn't like Tyrone Power or Errol Flynn. He didn't have those incredible like matinee idol handsome looks. And so as he got older, Mickey looked like even more of just a character actor. And so that's basically what he did. And he managed to find roles after the war. And also, as I'd mentioned, married several other times. His career had so many ups and downs and highs and lows In the 1950s, Mickey worked in television, which for a time it was kind of a risky move because oftentimes nowadays there's almost no line between film and television, and oftentimes for a lot of actors the roles are much better on streaming services or television or limited series, etc. But back then, if you were a major movie star and then all of a sudden you're on TV, in some cases you're kind of slumming at that point, and it's a huge step down. But Mickey did these things anyway, and he got acclaim for his TV performances, and it kind of started another chapter in his career. He tried having his own television show 2 different times, but that didn't work. He was basically stacked against some huge hit series and really wasn't able to have his show in a prime slot to become a big hit. But Mickey kept working. He had another major crash in his life after marriage number 5. He was married for the 5th time. And this particular woman, they had 4 children, and then she had an affair with another actor. Mickey apparently was also sleeping around. Well, she had an affair with this actor, and then she and Mickey got separated, and then they reconciled. And then she basically promised Mickey that they'd get back together and she'd never see the guy again. And he went into a jealous rage, this actor that she was having this relationship with, and he went to the house and he killed Mickey's wife, and then the guy killed himself. So that was a huge decline for Mickey. And then he was having trouble getting work. And then Judy Garland died, who was like his best friend. And so many really terrible things happened during that year. But much like a phoenix out of the ashes, Mickey would rise yet again. He just continues to rise and fall and rise and fall. His career had so many transitions and changes and ups and downs. And, Mickey continued working and really never stopped working. But the other problem that Mickey had was gambling, as I have mentioned. And he would gamble all of his money away. And then he would do these crazy schemes to try to get his money back or to try to make money. So at one point he had a baked potato restaurant, and he tried all these different kind of wacky get-rich-quick schemes that often backfired in his face very badly. He kind of needs a biopic, to be honest, because his life is so incredibly colorful. Well, Mickey continued to work right up until the end of his life in 2013, I believe it was, and he was 93. And one thing that that stays with me is, again, Mickey's talent, Mickey's ability to survive so much setback in his life, be it financial, be it with the marriages, the career. He wound up having a total of 8 wives and 10 children. And also he got a Juvenile Academy Award for his work as a young boy. And then he got 4 nominations as an adult, an actually an honorary Oscar as a senior citizen. He won an Emmy Award for his work on television. He went through so many different incarnations during his career, and he was a fantastic actor. And unfortunately, Mickey could also be very difficult and sometimes did have a reputation for that. But again, I think it all goes back to this sort of the syndrome of the child star, because again, it goes into great depth about it in this book. But a lot of times the child star, they are not told no. Like a lot of the time, they're the breadwinners. They're the ones making all the money. So whatever they want, they get. And if they want something and someone can't get it for them, that person is replaced with someone who does. And they don't have the education. They are not really given, in a lot of cases, not all, but a lot, the tools they need to survive in adult life. So like they grow up, they don't know how to rent an apartment, how to buy a car, how to pay taxes, how to book a hotel room, how to get a flight, like how to, cook or clean or pay the bills, or like basic is what we would call today adulting. They are not really taught how to adult. They either have a stage parent, usually a mother, or a studio, or somebody around to do all of that for them. Another problem with the child actor, certainly back in the day, was that any trouble they get into being an unexpected pregnancy, a car accident, they get drunk and they get in a fight in public, or anything that they do that gets them into trouble, there is somebody there that quite literally takes care of it and cleans up the mess. And so I think what that sort of does really is enable them. And so they grow up thinking they can do whatever they want and not realizing that's not the case. And there are also consequences to your actions. That's another thing they're really not quite taught. So they can go out and do anything and they don't have to deal with the result. So that's another problem that a lot of child stars encounter. And it really has to be a head trip to be huge, famous, beloved, celebrated one day, and then a year or two later, people don't know who you are. Or in the case of a lot of these stars, worse yet, people don't care who you are. And Hollywood and fame and all of that can be very fickle and very fleeting. And so a lot of these stars didn't have more pursuits or other things in their lives to kind of focus on. And again, when that stardom waned or even was gone, it created a tremendous emotional void in their lives. And that had to have been painful and very difficult. And it's not like they probably had real support groups. I mean, they had each other to talk to, a lot of these child stars, but I don't think they had as much help or support as hopefully child stars would today. But I think Mickey has left a very interesting legacy of films, from Mad, Mad, Mad World to the musicals with Judy Garland, to the human comedy, the Andy Hardy series, to his Oscar-nominated performance in The Black Stallion. There's really an incredible body of work that Mickey has left behind. And I think that he will continue to live on through that work. And that's the magic of film, is that hopefully it's always going to be there. And there will be Turner Classic Movies, there will be screenings, there will be ways to appreciate that work. And so we salute Mickey on the 100th anniversary of his birth. Again, he was one of Hollywood's great dynamos and talents. All right, so that's my talk about Mickey Rooney. I've got a lot of other things to talk to you about today. It's been a really, really crazy week, but in a good way, so that's good. First off, I'm pretty tired today, but there's a good reason why I am. I did an epic, epic photo shoot with Close-Up. I did not realize that some of these caretakers at the cemetery who feed the cats, they pay for that out of their own pockets. And that's got to add up considering how many cats live there. There's 5 feral cat colonies, by the way, at the cemetery. And so I have talked to Diana Lundeen. She is an award-winning, incredible pet portrait photographer. I got together with her today. There's a wonderful lady named Joanna Ramos. She runs the My Silent Boyfriend Rudolph Valentino group online on social media channels. And she also does Charlie Chaplin. And her friend Todd plays Santa Claus. So today at the cemetery, believe it or not, I had Joanna dressed as Charlie Chaplin, her son dressed as Jackie Coogan. We had a guy dressed as Santa Claus. We pretty much got a 12 months of close-up photo shoot done all this morning, and it was so epic. And I have to say that when you shoot a feral cat in a cemetery, there's a real high chance that they may not show up at all, or they may not choose to cooperate. We are incredibly fortunate that that was simply not the case with Close-Up. That cat is a real pro. He showed up right at my car the minute I pulled up to DeMille's grave. He was standing right there waiting on me. And he sat, he posed. I would say, come on, Close-Up, we're going to go see Vampira. He'd just walk right over to Vampira with me. It was like amazing. That cat is just, he is a real pro. So we got a ton of photos. I'm going to post a few sneak preview shots for you on this page. So that was really cool. And hopefully I'm going to work with a nonprofit that helps these cats. And the idea is to make a 12-month calendar that people can buy, and the proceeds help support the cat colonies. So I think that'll be a fun thing. And besides, 2020 has been a rough year for a lot of us. So I think we could all use close-up frolicking with Charlie Chaplin and Santa Claus, and I think we could use some happiness to take us into 2021. Am I right? So I am hard at work on making that happen. And again, I thank you so much to Heather Pita, Joanna Ramos, Todd, Joanna's son, and Diana Lundeen for an incredible photo shoot with Close Up this morning. And there's more news, actually. Um, I have been talking to the cemetery and I have gotten approval to do a limited series of nighttime walking tours. This is going to be so cool. It's something I've kind of wanted to do for a very long time. And because of the pandemic, it's going to be very, very limited capacity, limited time. So I'm working on finalizing all the details this week, and I will be ready to make an announcement very soon. So stay tuned to this page for an announcement on that. So that's pretty much what's going on at the cemetery and with me right now. Also, the doppelganger did kind of show up for the shoot today, and she kind of, she, doppelganger, kind of lurked in the background and watched us, but didn't try to steal Close-Up's thunder, but I felt badly. I didn't want the doppelganger to feel like Close-Up was getting more love, and it wasn't. So after the shoot, I fed the doppelganger food and petted it a little bit, and I'm trying to dole out the love in equal measures because as I've explained to Close-Up, I've got plenty of love to give for both him and the other cat, trying to convince him of this. So I did pet the doppelganger, and I also pet Close-Up. It's just trying to do it both at the same time is a bit of a challenge. So that's what's going on right now. Again, stay tuned for a big announcement about the calendar. Stay tuned for an announcement about the night tours. And everybody, thank you so much for watching my little videos and for interacting with me. And again, it's really been fun to do that during this crazy and wild time. So thank you. And I will see you all next week.